Every time I remember this, I just got crazy, even like to see it now. The premiere of the film was on a graveyard because there is big space and there's wall where they can project the picture.
This is Faisal Abu Elijah. In the mid-2000s, he was a teenager, hanging out in a graveyard with a bunch of his friends. And they were about to watch a very controversial documentary. This graveyard is in a refugee camp in the West Bank of occupied Palestine. It's called Jenin Camp. And the film they were about to watch, what it represented, and what it would eventually help create, it all showed a world that Israeli and Palestinian authorities didn't want young Palestinians to have.
This is my mother, Arna. She was born to a Jewish family in a little village in the Galilee.
The film is Arna's Children, a documentary about kids in Jenin Camp participating in theater. Faisal was watching when suddenly someone on screen caught his eye.
The catching moment was when I realized my cousin is in the film. And I didn't know that before. And to be honest, I show off so much. Like when we watched the film, oh, Ashraf.
In the scene, Faisal's cousin Ashraf, just a kid at the time, is talking to the head of the theater in Arabic.
يعني بشعر بقوة وبفخر وبعز إني بمثل وإن شاء الله رايحين نبني مستقبلنا على دور المسرح.
أشرف أي دور بدك تعمل؟
The captions under Ashraf say, "On stage, I feel strong, alive, proud. I hope to become a famous actor, and God willing, I will have a future career in the theater." Then the interviewer asks him what his dream is, and Ashraf says,
أنا حابب إني أكون بالدور الروميو الفلسطيني.
"I want to play the Palestinian Romeo." It's a small thing, wanting to be cast as Romeo in a play. I see it all the time, young actors dreaming of playing that iconic leading man. But for Faisal, seeing his cousin's desire to be an actor, to play Romeo, ignited something in him. Like Faisal, Ashraf had grown up in Jenin and faced many of the same challenges. And seeing Ashraf actually do it made Faisal realize that a life on stage felt possible.
The idea of somebody from my family in the film, it's make me motivated. Like there's somebody like into art, also into theater. So that's motivating. Oh, wow. It make me, I want to be a Palestinian Romeo too.
Faisal at that point was especially happy to see Ashraf because he had lost Ashraf. His cousin was killed by the Israeli Defense Forces in 2002 during the Battle of Jenin. A lot of kids in the West Bank would face the same fate. But what this documentary would birth was a place for kids like Faisal to escape that fate. A place where they could forge a different path for themselves. Welcome to Performing the Revolution. Join me over 4 episodes where I discover how artists around the globe are using their craft to fight for political change. I'm Merope Peponides. Now, if you're asking where Janam is, the Indian street theater company you heard from the first episode, don't worry, they'll make an appearance soon enough. But first, I want to take you to one of the most contentious places in the world, Jenin Refugee Camp in occupied Palestine. Here, a small theater company, founded by a magnetic but contentious outsider, has been putting on inventive and adventurous productions that teach young people resistance through the performing arts. They too face a major real-life tragedy, but find a way to continue their work through support from around the globe, including performing all across India with our friends from Janam. And the onstage revolution begins right after this short break.
Hey guys, this is Ramoy Phillip, one of the executive producers alongside Merope for this show. Don't worry, I'm not here to get you to sign up for Squarespace. I'm not trying to get you onto a Casper mattress. All I want to do is say thank you. It may seem insignificant, but you clicking play means the world to me and our team. When we first started orbiting these stories about 2 years ago, we were pretty sure we had something special. But now, for you to be here listening to the culmination of all that time, work, and creativity, it's no BS. We're truly honored that you're down to ride with us and these stories. So take that with you as you continue to listen, and I'll be back a little later in the episode to share a bit more about how you can help us push these underreported stories further out into the world. So, until then, let's get back into it.
Before Faisal ever became an actor like his cousin, he was just a kid in Jenin camp, a chaotic and confusing place.
Like, I born in the first intifada, and I grew up in the second intifada. So you talk about Palestinian generations who's never got any chance for quiet, it's not much. I'm not talking about chances in life and blah, 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 blah. No, chances just for quiet, to settle.
Faisal grew up without the chance for quiet. Both the first and second intifadas marked pivotal moments in the Palestinian struggle for self-determination as they challenged the Israeli military occupation. Faisal would go on to tell us what this occupation felt like throughout Jenin, like how on any given night, Israeli forces would raid his family and friends' homes.
And I remember as a child, like everybody wanted to explain to you the situation, but but you didn't get it. You don't understand why. Like, what does it mean? Like, suddenly, in the middle of the night, Israeli soldiers attacking your home for no reason. You are all out in the midnight. You stay until morning. If it's cold, it's cold. If it's rainy, it's rainy. You have to stay out until they check the house, and then they leave. Story's done. Why? Who? You don't know. You have to accept. No choice.
It wasn't always this way for Faisal's family. They were originally from Haifa, a city on the Mediterranean Sea, just an hour away from Jenin. They were pushed out to the West Bank when the State of Israel was founded.
In 1948, like my family flee and came to Jenin area, and then in the 50s, they collect everybody in Jenin Refugee camp.
Jenin Refugee Camp is located in the city of Jenin, in the northern part of the West Bank. Professor Gary English, who specializes in theater and human rights, also spent a lot of time in the theater community of Jenin in 2012 to 2013. And as he remembers it,
Jenin is a city that sits at the foot of the mountains on the northwest side of a series of valleys and mountains. And when you drive there in the West Bank, you come into this area that is just the most rich, lush, almost idyllic Mediterranean landscape of mountain after mountain filled with thousands and thousands of olive groves. It's really the agricultural center of the West Bank, Palestine area. And Jenin Camp, which is a refugee camp, is on the kind of southwest side, but it's a very different place from the city. It's 17,000 people living in 1 square kilometer, so by any definition, it qualifies as a ghetto. There's a gate entrance with arches with keys, because the key is a popular symbol of resistance, because it represents the keys that the refugees have hanging in their homes from their original houses in Haifa.
Growing up in Jenin camp, the desire to return home was a sentiment Faisal heard often.
People like, we will be back, we will be back. We grow up with this, we will be back, but to where? Like, we never visit this place. My father was a refugee, and like my grandfather, it's becoming our gene now. Like a refugee over refugee over refugee over refugee.
But aside from dreaming about returning to their ancestral home, when you're a kid in Jenin, there's not a lot of opportunity to envision a future. There's poverty, high unemployment caused in part by Israeli restrictions, and reminders of death are everywhere.
You walk through camp, you see posters of martyred young men all over the walls. Sometimes they're in light boxes. And the young people who grow up in the camp grow up within a social ethos where that is almost prophecy.
But after that day in the graveyard, Faisal saw an opening, a possibility of maybe avoiding that fate, the same fate that met his cousin Ashraf and so many other young people in Jenin. After the film screening in the graveyard, Faisal knew one thing. He wanted to be an actor. In 2008, just a year after that screening, he got his opportunity. Faisal heard that there were auditions for a new theater company and theater school in Jenin camp. And the man holding the auditions was the same man who directed the film in the graveyard, Giuliano Mercamis. Giuliano was a tall, striking man in his late 40s, with movie star good looks. Faisal jumped at the chance to audition for him.
I was nervous because I want to get in. The theater is what I want, and here's the chance, so I have to take it.
He performed the lines he memorized. He tried to be as creative as he could. And when he was done, Giuliano stared at him and asked him a question. Why did he want to join the theater?
I remember I said, I don't know, it came like spontaneously. I said, listen, like theater is in my blood. In that moment, he freeze a bit. Like, you know, when you touch a person, his reaction, this silent moment, I knew I got him, I'm in.
That line might have hit home for Giuliano because theater was in his blood too. Giuliano is the son of Arna Mer Khamis and Saliba Khamis. His mother Arna was a progressive Israeli Jew, born in 1929 in Rosh Pina. At the time, the British took initial control of the region. And Saliba was an Arab Christian who was a prominent leader in the Israeli Communist Party. During the 80s, towards the end of the First Intifada, Arna, an activist and social worker, opened the Stone Theater in Jenin. Her goal was to educate and support the kids of the camp suffering from PTSD. The film Faisal saw in the graveyard was about Arna and her work on that project. Arna's children had a huge impact internationally. The film follows students of Arna's and was shot over 2 time periods. In the 1990s, we meet a group of rambunctious young boys as they perform in the theater and proclaim their dreams of stardom. In the second half, it's the early 2000s, where we're in the midst of the Second Intifada, and many of the kids we met, including Faisal's cousin Ashraf, have been killed. It's a striking and tragic window into Palestinian lives in the occupied territories. Tragically, Arna died of cancer in the mid-90s, which played a key part in Giuliano's 2004 film. Her death, along with the subsequent instability after the Second Intifada, resulted in the Stone Theater shutting down. That could have been the end, but Giuliano wouldn't have that. He and 2 others found a space to continue Arna's work. They got a hold of a building that used to be an old storage facility for the UN and built a theater inside of it. They named it the Freedom Theater. But Giuliano wanted to expand on what his mother started.
Giuliano had an additional agenda, which was to build a major company. He wanted to create a cultural center in Jenin that people would come there to study, to work, and then he wanted to take the productions to break through the wall in ways that politics couldn't, to unify Palestinians across the divides.
Here's Giuliano being interviewed for a promotional video about the Freedom Theater.
The theater is a place where people can think freely, where people can test their thoughts and their desires and their dreams, a place that people can be equal in sex, equal in rights, a place that people can cooperate. Look, theater is a place where you can dream. And we don't dream anymore. Even the small kids, the maximum dream is about death. We lost directions, we lost the dream of a free society, of culture. You know, Palestine. This is not Palestine, this is the footstep of the dust from the dream of Palestine.
The Freedom Theater was Giuliano's own dream. He wanted to build on what his mother had started and add his own artistic vision. Unapologetic, bold, and provocative.
After a few years of working primarily with children, they started an acting school. They recruited young adults, and they built a conservatory to train these students.
And that's when Faisal auditioned and got in. Once there, Faisal got to experience Giuliano up close and learned he was a force of nature.
Giuliano as a person, he's many persons. It's not like only one. He was somebody who's like really different and very provocative person. He's an artist, hard worker, a crazy mentality, and a brave guy.
Giuliano was also relentlessly tough as a teacher. There was no hand-holding or gentle encouragement, and being an acting student in his school was far from easy.
He was a tough teacher, really. Like, it's not easy to be in his class. He's very provocative. Like, he wants to broke you. We used to hate his classes because it's all about, I don't know, his notes are hard and harsh. So, yeah, it was a tough time. We cry a lot. We laugh a lot.
As the 4-year program progressed, Faisal hung in there, but not every student did.
It was tough, and that's why a lot of people left. And that's why I think is a strategy, like make it hard so to see who's serious. We start, around 20, 25 students in the year, but we graduated 6.
It was not uncommon for theater training programs to be tough. Back in my acting days, I was yelled at by a lot of my teachers too. Nowadays, these methods are being rightfully scrutinized, and most teachers work to strike a balance between rigorous training and a culture of care. Nevertheless, Giuliano at his heart was a provocateur and brought that distinctly disruptive fire to both his teaching style and the productions he directed.
We did Animal Farm by George Orwell. And after that, the theater got burned. Somebody came in the night.
Yes, you heard that correctly. After the Freedom Theater's performance of Animal Farm in 2009, somebody snuck in and set fire to the theater. It seems the play struck a real nerve in the community.
It was big. That was challenging because also in the play we use the pigs. Pigs for Muslim culture, it's a bit forbidden. Also, we were very critical because in the end of the play we bring the Palestinian Authority to the stage to have a deal with the pigs. Basically, we were sending a very strong message about how our leadership worked, how the revolution starts and things, and then the Israelis will come in the end of the day with the pigs or with the Palestinian Authority, and it's done.
But a little arson didn't stop Giuliano. And for the Freedom Theater's next production, he pushed the envelope even further. He staged a gritty interpretation of Alice in Wonderland. This version tells the story of a young girl forced into an unwanted engagement. Here's Giuliano again.
Now we're going to do our next scandal. Our Alice is not a stupid girl who finds out that there is a caterpillar. Our Alice going to rebel. Hey, Alice! No! Alice! Tradition, religion, schools, Papa and Mama. She's gonna say, give me a break, guys. I have my own way. That's dangerous.
Alice's reality is full of conflict, and the people around only want to control and possess her. As she journeys through this fraught world, she begins to grow up and learn how to make her own choices, ultimately emerging a stronger person.
And as Gary English recounts, the show was a hit, complete with some 70s pop favorites.
It just broke the whole West Bank. It was this wild theatrical piece. They built a turntable, they had flying, they had scarf performances, they had rock and roll. It ran for months. People saw it 5 and 6 times. It was the cultural event of the decade.
Freedom Theater's production of Alice cemented the young company's reputation as a boundary-breaking creative powerhouse. But the show, like Animal Farm, had its critics. And Giuliano had experience with that.
Children love us. Young people love us. Up 35, they hate us. So we have big conflicts with the society around, with the PA, Palestinian Authority. We have big conflicts with the parents, with the teachers.
The production drew attention from a more religiously conservative sect of the community. They feared that Giuliano, seen as an outsider with Israeli citizenship, was corrupting the youth of Jenin. Whether positive or negative, one thing couldn't be denied. The Freedom Theater's work was getting attention. And eventually those waves reached India and our friends from Janam. Around the same time the Freedom Theater was performing Alice, a friend of Sudhanva Deshpande, who you heard in our last episode, was telling him about her recent trip to Palestine.
She said to me, there was this very interesting, very charismatic, handsome guy there, and he runs this theater. So I said, is it Giuliano?
Sudhu had seen Arna's children. You could say it was kind of like the Avengers for the socialist-leaning theater crowd.
She said, yes. So I said, oh my God, he's gone back there and started a theater again? That's fantastic. I need to be in touch with this guy. This must have been in the middle of March 2011. I wrote him a short email introducing myself and saying that I'd love to learn more about what you're doing.
Sudhu would spend days checking his inbox, seeing if he would ever get a response.
And one day I opened Facebook and a friend had posted breaking news saying that Israeli actor shot dead in Jenin. My heart just stopped. I said, let this not be Giuliano. Please let this not be Giuliano.
Palestinians, artists, peace activists worldwide are mourning the loss of a leading figure in Palestinian creative nonviolence resistance. Giuliano Merhamis, the head of a theater for Palestinian children, was killed on Monday in the West Bank town of Jenin.
On April 4th, 2011, as Giuliano was leaving the theater, a masked gunman emerged from a nearby alley and shot him 5 times. To this day, no one knows exactly why Giuliano was murdered, and his killer has never been caught. Of the many lessons Giuliano imparted to his students, learning how to deal with the reality of constant rejection and making peace with failure proved to be the most lasting for Faisal.
Used to say, lots of artists, they cannot handle the falling down, so they leave, they stop, they quit. So we have to get strong on falling down. And this is this is one of the things that's inspiring to me all the time.
But in a place like Jenin, Giuliano's lesson of getting strong on falling down means even more. What do you do when your home is destroyed or when someone you love is taken from you? Life in Jenin involves getting knocked down a lot. And the lessons from the Freedom Theater gave the students the strength to gather what's left and move forward. Still, Giuliano's death drew the theater he co-founded into a kind of chaos.
There's a lot of fear everywhere. And the people who are volunteering in the theater, the embassies start to call them, leave Jenin, don't stay. We don't know what will happen. We don't know what we will face. The question is what I shall do. Shall I leave the theater, I end the story here, or shall I keep going?
This is when Gary English comes in, along with an outpouring of support from around the world. He volunteered to serve as interim artistic director for the Freedom Theater. Together, they adapted a world-renowned production. It was a play called The Island by Athol Fugard, which originally takes place in apartheid South Africa.
The Island is about South African political prisoners. But when you're there in the Jenin camp, then it's expressing the embodied experience of Palestinians who are hauled off to prison.
The subject matter of the play was extremely personal to Faisal.
When you say a prison for somebody from Jenin camp, it's like for anybody, let's say, the same sentence as let's have coffee. when we are children, we grow up, always there is somebody in the prison. Like I have two brothers, no, actually three even. One of them spent 12 years, other one is spent 5 years, but not at one time. So since my childhood, there's always one brother is missing. Where? In a prison. And that's not only me, that's also my neighbors, that's also my cousin. So it's become like a story, very normalized. And every house in Palestine have somebody who was in the prison or being arrested or have this experience. We never been complete family.
This epidemic of imprisoning people without formally charging them is called administrative detention. Under its much criticized legislation, it permits the Israeli security forces to hold a person without formally charging them and without trial. They can do this on the grounds that they suspect the person of planning to break the law in the future. These prisoners can be held 6 months at a time. And even worse, they can just renew the 6 months to extend the sentence. And this can, and does, go on for years. Performing the island was a formative experience for Faisal.
We didn't do a lot of work about the adaptation. It's same. It was like for us, when we read the script, I said, oh my God, it's same story, same people, same emotion. So we just changed the name.
For Faisal, a lot had happened in a few years. And he was now without Giuliano, his mentor, as a guide. Still, lessons presented themselves with each new experience, and an important one was yet to come. Meanwhile, in India, Sudu mourned Giuliano's death. He couldn't help but think of his mentor Safdar, killed just like Giuliano.
I felt like I had been transported back several years. You know, in a flash, it just comes to you and you go back to that emotion that you felt as a young person when Safdar died, you know. And I was like, oh my God, what are those young kids going through right now?
Now, with Giuliano's death, Sudu couldn't help but think about the young students this charismatic leader left behind. Sudu was adamant that Janam and the Freedom Theater must meet.
I was like, man, I just have to make this connection between Janam and the Freedom Theater. In whatever form, you know, we have to know about each other. We have to learn about each other.
And Sudu would do whatever it took to make that opportunity a reality, to bring the Freedom Theater over to India. That's right after this short break.
Okay, so the reason you're not hearing me do an ad read for ZipRecruiter is because for all that you've heard so far, does that sound on brand? Look, we're an indie show. That means we need you, our listeners, to be that propulsive force to get these not often heard stories out into our world. So if you haven't already, hit the follow or subscribe button. Tap share on your phone and send this podcast to all of your people. Leave us a review even. Truly, that level of support not only means the world to us and the people in these stories, but it'll honestly help get this message to more people who could benefit from them. Thank you again. Now back to Performing the Revolution.
Welcome back. Before the break, longtime Janam performer, director, and organizer Sudu Deshpande was desperate to make contact with the Freedom Theater in Jenin, Palestine. The connection for Sudu runs deeper than just theater. India's support for Palestine goes a long way back.
The first passport that I ever got as a kid used to have a stamp on it that used to say not valid for travel in South Africa and Israel. These were two states with which India did not have diplomatic relations. In the early 90s, that starts to shift. There's liberalization, there's globalization. And today, in fact, India is the largest buyer of Israeli arms anywhere in the world, including Israel itself. And so there's a very direct link that India has with the occupation. It's our tax money that is funding the occupation.
This idea that our tax dollars are funding the oppression of our fellow artists in Palestine is just one of many parallels between the governments of India and the US that we as artists are critiquing in our plays.
Motivated by his desire to support the Freedom Theater, Sudu gets to work. In late 2011, after months of asking around, he was eventually able to establish contact. And as he suspected, there was an immediate sense of solidarity. No matter where you are in the world, one truth remains universal. Theater people are, well, theater people.
There is kind of a, revolutionary feeling. We have the brother in India doing the same thing, fighting. We will continue, we will perform, we will do more and more and more.
And that's when the idea came up that, can we take this to a different level?
After talking about it, Sudu, Faisal, and the two groups began to wonder what would happen if the Freedom Theater came over to India to work with Janam. The rough idea was to create a production that could teach a new generation about India and Palestine's shared connection. Janam had done collaborations in the past, but never on this scale or with a theater outside India. This was the most ambitious collaboration they had ever attempted. Running this artistic experiment were two familiar characters.
Faisal, he and I were the co-directors of this play. He was, I think, 25 or 26. In 2015, I was close to 50. So I was almost double his age. And what if the two of us can't work together?
We had this agreement, which was that every day we will meet after the play, only the two of us. We decided from the beginning to be honest with each other.
Faisal and another teacher from the Freedom Theater would bring 6 students over from Jenin. Depending on who you ask, the timeline varies. But roughly in the span of a month or two, they would need to work with Janam and devise a brand new production. And the as-yet-to-be-created piece was already scheduled to perform on tour in close to a dozen cities throughout India. No pressure or anything, right?
They were excited to just step out of Palestine. For some of them, it was their first experience of sitting in an airplane.
We were like an experiment, like we were in a lab.
A lab that would change these kids in a pretty unexpected way. You would think a bunch of young adults in the prime of their life could keep up with Janam, but they struggled with the long days and intense schedule. Janam theater artists are nothing if not hardcore. Most have full-time jobs, so they're used to working on their shows during evenings and performing on weekends. No breaks, no days off. It was a lot to take on.
They would come in the morning, we'd start classes at 10 o'clock, and from 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock they would work, and then at 6:30 our rehearsal would begin. Just the pace of work, the amount of work that was required, the physical effort that was required to make this happen.
But once Faisal and his students saw Janam perform, they had a clear vision of what they were working toward. Even on the busiest of streets, Janam could draw in an audience through their distinct blend of comedy laced with a sneaky dose of hard-hitting social commentary.
We want to see their show, which was in front of a bike factory. They go in the break for the workers, and then they do a play for 20 minutes for the workers and do wow, and then they leave. That was first time I witnessed that. And where it's in India, they are very committed to their people. They are in touch with their communities. It was very inspiring to us.
The two groups were inspired, sure, but coming up with a concept for the production wouldn't be easy. The tour dates were fast approaching, whether or not they had a complete show. Hearing this brings back so many production nightmares. Desperate writing sessions at the 11th hour, trying to figure out a new play, days or even hours before its first performance. But as the days progressed for the two groups, a concept for the show slowly began to form.
Our starting point in the play. There's an Indian director and a Palestinian stage manager. That's how the play starts. We start to learn about ourselves through, theater exercises. Sometimes we tell a story, some improvisation, sometimes sharing thoughts, dance, music, poetry. And then it's got slowly to the Palestinian-India story somehow.
The group went meta for this production. They devised a show about making a show that would tell the story of Palestine and India, the challenges they shared, the memories they uplifted, and the hope they both embodied, with a little comedy thrown in, of course.
That's to create a different language, I think, and to create different understanding to Palestinian story. When you last time, like you see a Palestinian comedy show, then that you will see the story, you will see the occupation from different side. You will see the Palestinian from different side. At least, I think it will help to be seen as a human.
The opening scene literally has Buster Keaton levels of physical comedy as a ladder is tossed between the Palestinian stage manager and the Indian director as they argue about what the production should be. And because the production was in Hindi and Arabic, this physicality also served as a way to universally communicate. Here's Mala, one of the leaders of Janam, who we met in our last episode.
It was called Hamesha Samida. Hamesha means forever, and Samida is steadfast. So forever, steadfast. Because one of the things that we felt that when they talked about it, about themselves and about Palestine, it's there. You do what you want, it's there. It's not going anywhere. You throw bombs, it won't go anywhere. It'll still be there. So, forever steadfast.
They had pulled it off, creating an original work with actors from different countries who spoke different languages and who had just started working together. But that was the first hurdle. There was a multi-city tour on the horizon. Again, it was around a dozen cities, often multiple performances in each, not to mention the press Faisal and Sudu had to do to get the word out. India is a big place, so we're talking multi-day train rides between tour stops. The pace was grueling. Faisal was often so tired from performing and doing press interviews, he would just shut down from all the exertion and fall into a silent stupor on the train rides. But despite the challenges of the tour, the experience of the Indian audiences was unmatched.
You can't believe it. Like, you arrived to the station, you found hundreds of people waiting for us, chanting, Palestine Zindabad, Palestine Zindabad, which is mean long life Palestine.
Faisal also felt that the Indian audiences were able to truly understand many aspects of the Palestinian experience.
Can relate to what you talk about. When you try to explain to somebody about the idea of a checkpoint, like when you move from place to place, you have to be stopped by people that you have to show ID and to check you. And that is not one time. This is the deal. For us become the normal. When you talk about this in India, I don't know, people have a story to relate to. There is kind of pain sharing somehow. Like when you talk about demonstration exam, when you talk about tear gas, when you talk about arrested, when you talk about prison, we don't have to to say the most smart thing on earth. It's just like artists meeting with each other.
It was on the tour that the Freedom Theater members experienced one of the most memorable moments. They were riding on the train to Kerala, a state in South India along the Arabian Sea. There, the actors were able to experience a first.
Yeah, the ocean for the first time.
I remember how the bus exploded with joy and laughter and, everyone taking out their cell phones and taking photographs. These kids had never seen the sea in their life.
It's hard to believe these young adults had never felt the thrill of running on the beach or playing in the waves, especially when they had grown up so close to it.
Between Jenin and the Mediterranean Sea, it's 50-minute drive, but we never been there. You are not allowed to be there.
They were not allowed there because they were blocked by the strict regulations imposed by the Israeli occupation that dictate where and how Palestinians can exist.
It's just mind-boggling that it's right there. You can touch it almost, but you can't.
So seeing that, being in the ocean suddenly with huge waves, and we saw what's called in English sea turtles. That's the best thing we see in the. And it was beautiful, and the student, it was for them a shock, really, that there is something exists like this. Not only the sea, but to see all of India, all the culture, the differences, the huge. And you reach to the level where you cannot, is it real or no? And especially when you come from Palestine, which is all your life story about the occupation, the roads, the prison, the this, the killing, the what we will do, which idea I should have, which point I should cross. But suddenly there is something destroy all of that. India.
Faisal had come a long way. From that kid in the graveyard first learning about the possibilities of theater, to learning under and then losing Giuliano, and then to India as a young man working with Janam and becoming a teacher himself. But after India, Faisal made a surprising choice.
Honestly, after I come back from India, I resigned from the Freedom Theater.
In 2023, Faisal left for Vienna to write and pursue stand-up comedy. At first glance, that shift from drama to comedy might seem like a huge swerve. But after what Faisal witnessed growing up, he learned that laughter isn't just a release. It's a tool.
I go to open mics, yes. I had some bad nights, but remember what I said, I've trained well for the falling down, so it's okay. At the end of the day, Palestinian story, we are all agreed. It's a sad story, and there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of killing, there is so much. But why I want to repeat it again and to make somebody feel good. Like, it's okay, like let's feel good together. I think that's the power of comedy.
The Freedom Theater, now staffed by an all-Palestinian team who are mostly from Jenin, has flourished in the intervening years. Its productions continue to gather global acclaim and support. Recently, the theater was even nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. But still, they're continually harassed and raided by the Israeli Defense Forces, which has only gotten worse since the intensification of violence post-October 7th.
On Wednesday, Israeli soldiers raided the Freedom Theater in Jenin, a renowned cultural institution whose mission is to fight for Palestinian...
In late 2023, Israeli soldiers broke into the theater, ransacked its offices, blindfolded, handcuffed, and arrested the theater's producer, Mustafa Sheta, its artistic director, Ahmed Tobasi, and recent theater school graduate, Jamal Abu Joas. Tobasi was released after 24 hours, and Abu Joas after 8 days. Sheta, held in administrative detention for over 480 days, was only just released in April of 2025. And as Mustafa Sheta recounted in an interview this past May, the Freedom Theater has been forced to operate out of a rented space in Jenin City due to the Israeli Defense Forces' forced takeover of the group's building in Jenin camp. But still, the work continues on. Because theater can be more than just an art form to escape or laugh or even cry. It's a place to resist, a space where people can tell the stories of who they truly are and why they deserve to stand their ground. But you see, the Freedom Theater isn't the only other theater that connects us back to Janam. When me and my partner in life and work, Beto O'Byrne, first heard Janam's story back in 2018, we immediately realized there was another company, one that Beto and I had a close personal connection with, that was doing strikingly similar work. Not in the streets of Delhi, but in the farmlands of Central California.
The thing that for me that immediately grabbed me about this company is their work is incredibly similar to the early works of a company called El Teatro Campesino, or the Farm Workers Theater. I was like, oh my God, they're doing so many similar ideas and so many similar things, but like separated, by like thousands and thousands of miles.
That's next time on Performing the Revolution. Performing the Revolution is an original series created by Radical Evolution and Bad Coolie Productions. This episode was reported and produced by Flora Quitman. The rest of our reporting team are producers Ida Harden and Navani Otero. This episode was edited by Bethel Habte. Initial editorial support by Liz Mack. Fact-checking by Will Barlow. Sound design and mixing by Ramoy Phillip. Original music by Young Elephant and Chris Rapolo. Our theme song, Dolomite, is a Sunny Jane original. Show art by Manuel Miranda. The executive producer at Radical Evolution is me, Merope Peponides. The executive producer from Bad Coolie is Ramoy Phillip. To learn more about the Freedom Theater's current needs or make a donation, visit thefreedomtheater.org. Special thanks to Renin O'Day, Wafa Abdul Hussein, and to Sanya Hashmi, Komita Danda, Shayoni Mitra, Sharudi Broy, and Priyanka. To the network of ensemble theaters for the travel grant. Did you love this episode? The stories of resistance and courage? If you did, make sure you're subscribed to the series in whatever app you call your podcast home. We'll have another incredible story in your feed soon. Thank you for honoring this story with your time. I hope you can take something from it to shape our world. It's been a pleasure to share it with you.
If anybody gives me, vegetables from Jenin dipped in za'atar and olive oil with a bit of falafel thrown in, perfect. Don't need anything. I don't even need meat.